This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 184, Why You Need a Mid-Year Content Review and How to Do It Right. Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you grow your tribe and your bottom line through insanely good content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is July 21st, 2016. Hello, or as we say in Texas, howdy, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, this podcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud, and now also Google Play Music. So if you like what you hear, please feel free to click over and subscribe so you can get every single episode delivered directly to your happy little ears. I also invite you to subscribe to our weekly tip emails. Yes, every Friday, we send out a quick content marketing tip, plus links to our weekly video and the weekly blog post, as well as to the podcast. To subscribe, just go to resonancetips.com. Okay, update on the book. I expect to start taking pre-orders by the end of this week. So stay tuned. I know I have teased you before. I know it's been a long process, but I think we are coming to the milestone where I can start launch that pre-order page and start taking pre-orders. So please stay tuned. By the time I am before you next week, I fully expect to be able to have a page to share with you so that you can get your very own copy of the book. And I'm not revealing any details about it. I'm saving it all for the big reveal, so please stay tuned. Okay, all month long, we are talking about the mid-year review. Yes, 2016 is halfway over. And last week, we talked about checking on your audience and how to conduct those audience surveys in a way that give you fresh insights about that target audience that you have established for yourself. If you happen to miss that episode, feel free to check it out on iTunes or Stitcher or via the RSS feed. Today we're continuing our focus on the mid-year review by talking about your content review, how to evaluate your content for the first half of the year and make any tweaks that you need to make for the second half of 2016. But first it's time to check in with our news feed for this week's rundown of news you can use. If you like sharing animated GIFs on social media, then Twitter has some good news for you. They have increased the maximum size of an animated GIF that you can share, and that maximum is now 15 megabytes. Used to be only 5, but it is now 15. Here's the catch. It's only for GIFs that you upload when you're using Twitter on twitter.com. So from your laptop or your other computer. On mobile, on your tablet and on your smartphone, it is still subject to that 5 megabyte limit. But if you have a larger GIF to share, yes, you will need to pop open your laptop and hit twitter.com, but you do have the option of sharing those larger GIFs. Okay, news out of Buffer. They have added a new feature for Instagram. So if you use Instagram, you may have noticed that it's kind of a pain to pre-schedule content, or more accurately, you cannot pre-schedule content. Instagram, for their own reasons, have kept a very tight rein on how they allow third-party apps to interface with Instagram, and one of those things is that you haven't been able to pre-schedule. I think that they want to keep it very real time and focus on those images and videos taken in the moment, but who knows? Anyway, that's what it is. But Buffer is offering a stopgap solution. So what you do is, once you've set a reminder at buffer.com or using the mobile app, then, and I'm quoting here from an article, Buffer will send a notification to your phone that loads your photo into Instagram with your pre-written caption saved to your phone's clipboard, ready to be pasted. So you can tell Buffer, okay, I want to post this Instagram photo at 2 p.m. Central Time today. And when 2 p.m. rolls around, Buffer will pop up a notice on your phone. When you tap on it, it will preload the photo, and then the comments that you entered will be right there in your clipboard. So all you have to do is click paste, and then you can go ahead and send it. So yes, it won't post for you, but it will set you up. It will set up the post so that all you need to do is paste that comment and click publish. Kind of a kind of convoluted compared to other things that we do, but hey, that's what we got. Anyway, this new capability is available for iOS, Android, and on the web. Okay, our content hit of the week is a post by Neil Patel, who is one of my favorite go-tos for terrific content. He is right up there with the pro blogger guys. But he put up a wonderful post called "How to Easily Add Gamification Techniques to Your Content." And as I was looking around for this week's hit, this one struck me because of the whole Pokemon Go thing. Everybody's going crazy over this app, and not just the kids. And it really struck me how deeply people love games, and people of all ages. So what Neil does in this post is he shows us some really solid strategies for leveraging that love of game in our own content. Things like badges, earning badges for however many comments you leave, or leaderboards or quizzes, things like that. It's very interesting. It's very interesting the ways he lays it out, and he shares some very interesting insights. So I will share the link to the blog. I will share the link to Neil's post in my blog post for this episode. Okay, that's it for this week's update. If you stumble across something you think might be of interest to your fellow content marketers, please tweet it to me at @ResonanceCont, that's Resonance Content with the ENT lopped off, so that we can share. Now it's time for this week's Spotlight segment, why you need a mid-year content review and how to do it right. Yes, the bad news is that 2016 is halfway over, and don't ask me where it went. I have no idea. The good news is we still have 6 months to get on track to achieve those goals that we set for ourselves back in January. We still have half a year left. So last week we talked about reconnecting with your audience through powerful surveys. Today we turn our attention to the content itself and looking at how and why to do a mid-year content audit. So first, the why. You remember back in January, we launched our bright, shiny content marketing strategies. We had our goals. We had our tactics set up. We were all ready to roll. Well, now it's 6 months later, and the good news is we have 6 months worth of solid data to help us see how well what we're doing is working. So the question we need to ask ourselves is it better to, A, wait until December to look at the big picture when it's too late to do anything except maybe make adjustments for next year, or B, take the time to take a big picture look now when we still have 6 months left in the year to make some strategic adjustments? I'm going to go with B. I don't know about you, but and these mid-year reviews, yes, they do take time. They do take effort, but think of it as a tune-up, like you get it for your car. You tighten a hose here, or maybe replace a worn belt there, so you can make sure that you are ready for the road. It's the same principle. And of course, this is a great time to do it, especially if your business tends to be slower during the summer months. Summer vacations are winding down. We're not yet approaching the back-to-school madness that has a lot of people distracted. So this is a great time to be doing that audit and really looking at what's been going on the first half of this year and what we want to see for the second half of the year. So let's dive into the content audit. Now, again, this is going to take some time and effort. It's not going to be something that you will knock out in an hour on a Friday afternoon, but I assure you it will pay off in the end. So the first step you want to take is to catalog your content. And what we're going to do is look at the content that we published for the first half of the year, from January through June, through the end of June. And I compare a content audit to the task of cleaning out a closet. So you decide you're going to clean out a closet. What's the first thing you do? You need to pull everything out and look at it. Look at what you have, right? So make a list of all the content that you have created so far this year. And you can do that in an Excel spreadsheet or maybe a Google spreadsheet if you're dividing out tasks to your team. That's a great way to collaborate. So what is going into this list? Number one, our blog posts that we have published. Number two, email content, those e-newsletters that we're sending out with whatever frequency, and also any downloadable assets that you're currently promoting. And that means your ebooks, your white papers, your on-demand webinars, anything that you are using as a lead generation asset. that content needs to go into your list as well. Now, for the purpose of this audit, I wouldn't get into social media posts because there are just too many of them, and it makes it too tedious of a project. But do make yourself a note to separately from what we're talking about now, look at your social analytics over the last 6 months. See what's going on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and all those analytics are available to you. Whatever program you use, they're available within the apps as well. And see if you can identify common features among your more popular posts and see what you can leverage for the second half of this year. But that's another project for another day. And that is something you can knock out in maybe half an hour, looking at all those analytics for the last 6 months. But today we are focused on your mainstream, meaty, juicy content that you create and publish. So again, back to your spreadsheet, you might want to create a tab for each different type of content. So you set up your spreadsheet, you might want to have a tab for your blog posts, a tab for your e-newsletters or emails, and another tab for your downloadables. And then if you're doing anything else, if you're doing podcasting, maybe weekly video, create tabs for those as well, because that's going to keep it it's going to keep it manageable and make sure that you're looking at apples to apples when we start reviewing. For now, you're going to want to list the date published. Some people like to list the time that it was published as well, to see if there's anything to learn there. Maybe if posts published earlier in the day do better than later in the day, or vice versa. If you want to get that granular, be my guest. To me, that sounds kind of tedious, but hey, this is your list. The title, of course, for your emails, you want to list the subject line. And for your blog post, you want to list the URL. And for those downloadable assets, you also want to list the URL. You might want to also create a column for the topic category. If you have your content organized into maybe 5 or 6 different topics, you might want to create a column for that. So you've got your list all together. It will take time. But number 2, what you want to do is review your metrics. We have our list of content. We want to look at how that content performed for you. So what are we looking at? For your blog posts, we want to look at traffic. We want to look at backlinks. We want to look at bounce rates. So when people came to that page, how likely were they to stick around long enough to read the whole thing? So that's for your blog posts. For your emails, of course, we're going to look at open and click-through rates. For your downloadable assets, for those ebooks and white papers, look at traffic to those landing pages and also look at conversions. So of those people who came to that page, how many actually downloaded that asset, that white paper, that ebook? And if you're seeing a lot of traffic but not a lot of conversions, then it might be time to look at your landing page and see if and maybe you're providing too much information or not enough information, or maybe something is confusing, or maybe the layout isn't optimal. May be time to revisit that landing page. But for now, we're just getting those metrics down and looking at them. Okay, step 3 is to go back to your audience personas. Remember last week when we talked about revisiting your personas and conducting audience surveys to see if they need any updates? Well, assuming that that is done, we're going to pull out those freshly revised personas and take a fresh look at your audience, at their interests, at the challenges they're facing, at their wants, at their needs, and we're going to look at those compared to these content lists that we've just created. And that leads me into step 4, identify the gaps. So when you look at your audience personas on one side and your content list on the other, what gaps do you notice? Are there areas maybe you're creating a lot of content that does not address those audience needs? Or are you seeing some audience needs that have gone unaddressed in the content that you've created? And you might be seeing a little bit of both. So whatever gaps you identify, make sure you note those. Make sure you get those down for future consideration and future discussion, because that's either missed opportunities or wasted effort. It's a missed opportunity if your audience has a need that you're not addressing, and if you're creating content that doesn't resonate with them, then it's wasted effort. So we're really going to take a close look at those gaps that you identify. So once you've done that, it's time to, step 5, make adjustments. Look at your content calendar. So we've got our list of gaps in front of us. This is where these are missed opportunities, and this is where we're creating content that doesn't resonate. make adjustments. Look at your content calendar from now through the end of the year and look at ways that you can fill those gaps that you just identified. Look at ways you can address those unaddressed needs or tweak your content to resonate more fully with your audience. Also, what we want to do is when you look at your content list and you see which are your high performers and which are your worst performers, you can actually leverage both of those, both ends of that list. And this is something I learned from Christopher Penn, which is really interesting. So look at the top performers on your list and see how you can leverage what you learned from those, whether it's the way you phrased the title, whether it's the topic that you covered, whether it's the format, whether it was a Q&A or a list, whatever format, and maybe and see how you can leverage those topics. Maybe present them from a different perspective, or if you have a really high performing post that included some data, see if you can do an update with some more recent statistics so you can capitalize on the success that post has had, but you can update it, and that will give Google fresh content to feed upon. So that's what you want to do at the top of the list, but also go to the bottom of the list and look at your underperformers. Look at those posts that just kind of fell flat. And I like to think of that bottom of the list as a salvage yard. Okay, this content as it is did not do very well, but what can we do to salvage it? What can we do to use these pieces and bits and parts to create some shiny new content that does align with what those top performers have showed us? Maybe a post at the bottom of that list was a really good topic and it does align with your audience's needs, but it just wasn't presented in a way that resonated with your audience. So see how you can reframe, repackage, respin that content into new content that leverages what you learned from the posts at the top of that list. Okay, so that brings me to the sixth and final step. I think it's final. Let me look. Yes, sixth and final step is to go back to your strategy. And what you might want to do is create a 2.0 version of your 2016 strategy and incorporate what you learned from your content review. Maybe in your list of topics, give some a higher or a lower priority than they had previously. Or maybe you notice some trends in topic selection or word count among those top performing posts. You can also cite those as benchmarks. So for example, if your top performing blog post, and this goes, I focus on the blog. We're talking about emails, podcasts, whatever. If your best performing post had titles of 5 words or fewer, you may want to cite that as a benchmark. Now, can every title be 5 words or less? Probably not, but it is something to think about as you formulate titles for future posts. So what you're going to do in this final phase, take what you learned, update your strategy, and then that's what we're going to use as a guide as we absolutely rock and roll the last half of 2016. So that is the scoop on why and how to perform a successful mid-year content review. If you have any questions or want to add to the conversation, I would love to hear from you. And the best way to reach me is through the website, resonancecontent.com. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. So we just went through the steps for conducting a mid-year content review. And as you know by now, it's a pretty involved procedure. But here's what I want to stress. You don't have to wait for mid-year or for the end of the year to look at your analytics and to give it a really good, to get a really good big picture view of what's going on. I recommend looking at your analytics at least on a monthly basis. So at the beginning of each month, once the data from the previous month is completely ready to look at, I always look at it because it's going to show you from month to month what's working and what's not so that you can make those micro adjustments as you go along. And really, once you get your dashboard set up in whatever framework you use, whether it's Google Analytics or Aweber for your e-newsletters, whatever you're using, once you have your dashboard set up and you know what to look for, it will take you literally just a few minutes every single month to show you what is working well and what needs some tweaking. So, excuse me, sorry about that, I just had my breakfast. What that allows us to do, again, see on a monthly basis what is working well, what we might need to adjust so that we can leverage those practices going forward. Okay, campers, that's it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play Music or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it. Also, remember to sign up for our Tip of the Week emails at resonancetips.com. As you know, I always like to leave you with a good quote, and today's comes from one of my favorite historical personalities, Theodore Roosevelt. He once said, quote, "Far and away, the best prize that life offers is the chance to work hard at work worth doing," unquote. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again next week. Take care.